Order this Henderson County Board of Education special meeting and public hearing. Today is September 9th, 2020, and it's 5:45. Part of this is being conducted via video conferencing. The first thing is to call this meeting to order, and it is in order today. This is a public hearing to hear comments regarding proposed general fund tax levy. And we have several folks from our community who wish to speak. Each person will be given 3 minutes, and then Robin will wave when the 3 minutes is up, and you'll be allowed to finish your sentence after that. The first person to speak is Mr. Harvey Ershig. Harvey, would you like to go up and take a microphone? You got a microphone phone? Okay, thank you, Steve. You're welcome to stay right there then.
What are you telling me to do? I'm so deaf, I can't hear much.
She just said that you have a certain amount of time to speak, and then if you want to speak, just use that mic so that the people can hear you that are watching online too. Is that okay? Or do you want to stand up here?
No, this sitting here is fine.
Okay.
But I will, first of all, I object to the 3 minutes. I don't know that I'm going to take more than 3 minutes, but y'all have had a year to talk about this, and now you're giving the public 3 minutes to discuss it. That is patently unfair. That's the problem with the school system. You do a lot of stuff that's not fair. You've had all this time to talk about it, and now somebody comes in here and you give them 3 minutes. What is right about that? And there's only 2 people here.
Mr. Ershig, when the public speaks at a regular school board meeting, it has been history and procedure that we always give them. Let me finish. It's always.
With, you know, people don't get an opportunity to say much in 3 minutes. But I do have some comments that I would like to add about the tax levy of 64 cents.
Okay.
Regardless of the amount that we were going to have to pay, the tax increase that we're faced with is not that much, but it is an increase nevertheless, and the increase goes on every year. It's a compounding thing. Take note of the other taxing authorities that have left the tax rate as it was in 2020. But no, the school system, they got to grab every nickel they can get. The tax comes at a time when many of people are just getting by. Let me show you, committee members. This is a list of the Henderson County taxpayers that couldn't pay their taxes just last year. Hundreds. And at the same time, our government is telling us we can't use our property. The merchants can't open. The people can't work. And the school system is one out of the whole county that has decided to raise the taxes. Incidentally, these regulations restricting people were not because they wanted to be restricted. It's because the government wouldn't let them act. Regarding the school system, I have a few complaints at this time. Nothing can be done about any of them, but I'm going to tell you about them anyway. Several months ago, before the construction of Jefferson School, I went to the Planning Commission and voiced my concern about the location of that school. I talked for about 5 minutes, maybe a little less. I could see that the people on the Planning Commission were kind of getting a little antsy and wanted to get out of there. Nobody asked one question. Nobody on that committee really cared. But it is called a planning commission. I know they don't have a whole lot of jurisdiction, but they could have gotten involved and led this community to a better spot than what was chosen. That school is located so close to South Heights School that a good baseball player in his prime probably could have thrown the ball from one property line to another. It is nonsense to have a school that close to each other that devote to the same thing. If you needed more education experience in that neighborhood, you should have just added on to South Heights. I mean, why spend millions of dollars on a new school system that is going to do the same thing? The second concern I have concerns the cemetery. The school is going to be built on two sides of Fernwood Cemetery. Now, you can locate a school building just about anywhere, but you can't change that location of that cemetery. And it's not, probably, maybe it won't affect me or my family, but 20 or 30 years from now, this community is going to need that property that the school system has hogged as a cemetery. Otherwise, we're going to be out of business. Don't you think it would have just been just simple to somebody from the school system to go to the city commission and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Do you have any interest in acquiring that cemetery? If not, okay. But I checked it out. Nobody did that. I did, though.
Okay. Do you have comments about the tax situation? Because your time is already passed up, and
Another
I'm letting
thing
you
that
go
I
on.
have concern about is the cost of what you're putting into that lot. The excavation costs are going to be astronomical. I would like to know for the public, how much it's costing to get that dirt moved out of that lot. We've had 2 backhoes and many trucks working day and night for at least 2 months. And all of that is costing the taxpayers dollars. I was told before the choice was made about the location that the school system would prefer to locate on a piece of property that it already owns. That's fine. I agree with that, so long as it's suitable and in the right location. But neither one of these things were done. It's not suitable and it's not in the right spot. You know what it's going to cost to develop, or what it is costing to develop that property. If you put it in with what the city probably would have paid you for that lot, you could have gone out here and bought a really nice piece of ground. But why didn't a little investigation go into it? Just because you own something doesn't make it cheap.
Are you almost finished, Mr. Urshey? Because it's Mr.
What's that,
Pruitt's
please?
turn. Are you almost finished? It's Mr. Pruitt's turn to speak.
Now, as I sit here and think about this time thing, I'm reminded of the nickel tax hearing, how fraudulent that was to the people. That, you know, you got bogged down with the Gleaner editor, and he was part of part of the system. I won't go into all that, but it was just an unfortunate thing. And even after the nickel tax passed, the tax bills went out in two different waves. One was for the county taxes, and the next one was for the school tax. And I got all kinds of telephone calls, people asking me, I don't understand this. Lack of education. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Steve, if you could get the microphone.
I haven't touched it.
That's all
And our next speaker is Mr. Robert Pruitt.
right. You got it. Here you go.
Good evening. In this time, if you look around, we in some times we never seen before. People sitting 6 feet apart, some wearing masks. Oh, I'm gonna keep mine on. Some wearing masks. Oh, can you hear me? Some wearing masks, some not. So I am really praying for the educational system. You guys got a lot to handle. Kids coming back during this COVID, so I'm praying for you guys. One thing I do want to say, I kind of echo what Harvey Urshan was saying about the location of the school. A lot of my family members are buried on that backside over there. And when I look at where we're trying to encroach upon into the cemetery, I don't really understand why we built a school in the cemetery. I just don't get that part. Maybe 25 years from now, somebody look back and do some Monday night quarterbacking and saying maybe that wasn't the best place to build this school. Hadn't said that, the school's going forward, and I hope it'll be a great educational experience for them. But I do think the city commission and the school system could have got together and said, we're going to build a new school, but we're not going to build it in the cemetery. That, I don't want to see the kids looking out. Every time they look out, they're looking at tombstones. It don't make any sense. But hadn't said that, and it's going forward. I think 20 years from now, somebody will say, hey, this idea of building a school in the cemetery wasn't a great idea. Second thing I want to say is this property tax, a rate increase. I know school system always needs money. It's never a time where the school system is not going to need money or want money. But in this time, unprecedented, where landlords like myself and other landlords who have property, I've got one tenant who's going to get off scot-free for 10 months and not pay $1 to me. First, we have a ban from the federal government for 4 months. You can't evict. And now we got another ban from the president, executive order, where you can't evict. I'm going to have tenants that are going to a whole year rent, and I'm going to lose all of that. And I'm not getting compensated, and there's other landlords that are going to be in the same boat. We got businesses, maybe some of you guys own businesses. You're going to feel the crunch. And to raise taxes when other entities are holding steady, it's going to be a lot of fallout behind this economic disaster that we got going now, and it's going to be felt for the next few years. And I think if we can button up our belts and give the taxpayers and the people who invested in Henderson, like me and other landlords, and even property homeowners, some of them have lost their jobs. And I don't think this is the right time. Of all the times that people, everybody complains about raising taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. But there is a time when we need more taxes. But this is not one of them. I would ask you school board members to take a real hard look at what's going on in the economy and landlords. And like I said, I'm going to lose a lot of money this year because I got some tenants that are going to get off a whole year of rent, and the federal government is backing them, and they're not going to pay the landlords one penny. I don't know how all that works, but we're in some unprecedented times. And in this time, I would hope you guys would just take a good hard look and say, we got the nickel tax. That's helping provide more revenue than we would have had, and keep the tax rate as it is. And I truly am praying for y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Our next speaker is Mr. Ernest Green.
First off, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address this meeting. Presently, of course, most of my remarks are similar to those that have already been conveyed. But during the present times, we're all challenged. We're challenged and experiencing protests of government's believed failures in our lives in various ways and means. And presently, all of us are affected by the COVID virus, directly or indirectly. The freedoms of everyday survival and life in general are vastly compromised, in a compromised state, as you all know, as we all are experiencing. These compromises affect the financial abilities to provide all required necessities, such as employment opportunity, housing, utilities, food, services, and other amenities of life. Your actions here, although may be considered minor, but only will contribute to a further demise of the issues paramount in trying to survive. This is no time to increase taxes by any means or substance. Your response to this issue should be clear. Just engage with the serious consideration of the circumstances and the evident effects that we all are experiencing. When you have food establishments that are closing down because they cannot weather the storm, they do not have the money because people cannot participate because of the virus. The epidemic is certainly not over. And I'm not trying to downplay anything along that line. Neither am I predicting anything. I'm just saying to you that it's my firm belief that the epidemic is not over and that we're going to continue to suffer the consequences of something that which we have no control over. A vote for additional tax obligation is impractical and only increases the further burden and challenges. So again, my request of those that have a vote with respect to any tax increase in light of the situation that we are presently engaged, that we cannot conquer, or it seems that we can't conquer, even a vaccine that's been trying to be developed has reached some stalemate in terms of the validity as far as people, the side effects or whatever the case may be. Again, it's my plea to this board that you do not increase our tax burden, do not place additional obligations and challenges on all of us. Similarly, a follow-up, I'm also a landlord, and I have people that cannot pay their rent. The reason why they can't pay their rent because they had jobs that were affected by the virus. So the down effect is that all these people are in a situation where they cannot pay more. They can't even pay what they're obligated to pay presently. So landlords have been placed in a more difficult situation because of state mandates. I guess because you're a landlord and you own property, everybody thinks that you have the necessary monies in order to be able to function without any consideration at all. We do not. We rely also on the income that comes as well. But if those people do not have jobs and do not have the means in order to be able to pay, then we're also strapped as well. So again, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to say a few words in respect to the situation that is involved as far as any consideration as far as a tax increase. And I ask that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. We appreciate your input.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Seeing as how we are well past our 6 o'clock regular scheduled board meeting, I'm going to ask for, and I see no other public coming in to speak, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing portion of this meeting. Do I hear a motion to that effect? So moved, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mike. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Tax hearing is concluded. Now we'd like to call to order the Henderson County Board of Education special meeting for September 9th, 2020, also being conducted via video teleconference. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the prior meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those, and are there any changes or additions?
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented, ma'am.
Thank you. I second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The next order of business is to establish the 2020 and 2021 property and motor tax vehicle rate. There will be an action for this one. Ms. Cindy Cloutier, explanations, ma'am?
Good evening. I appreciate everybody's comments from the crowd. It is my job to bring what I think is best for the school system, so I'll be providing information based on taking a 4% increase. So if you look at page 2 in the document I provided you, you'll see a history of our tax rates levied for the past 28 years. 53% of the time during those years, we have levied a 4% increase. We had a stretch beginning in 2013-14 where we levied the compensating rate for 4 years. If you notice the tax rate in those years, you'll see that we did have a rate that actually declined, as it did again in 1920, and it will again this year with the compensating rate. On page 3, you'll see a comparison of our surrounding counties. You can see that there's 4 of the 6 or above us in the rates that they levied in 1920. So we are falling behind compared to our surrounding districts. On page 5, I provided definitions of the tax rate options. There are 5 different options. The 4% rate is the rate the administration is recommending. The 4% rate is a rate that will produce 4% more revenue than the compensating rate based on our new year assessments. It is not a 4% increase in the tax rate. It's 4% more revenue. Page 6, the exonerations. This allows us to recover some of our prior year losses due to errors or adjustments in the PBA assessments. This is a freebie and something that we've always included in our tax advertisements in the past. Page 7, property assessments are what drive the rate calculation each year, and they have a big impact on our tax rates and our SEEK. Our property assessments have averaged around a 2% increase each year over the past 10 years. Our PBA equalizes our quadrants in Henderson County, so we don't see big fluctuations in our assessments from year to year. Big fluctuations in assessments can cause big fluctuations in SEEK because of the inverse relationship between assessments and SEEK. As one goes up, the other comes down. Page 8, just remember that our expected revenue is not our actual revenue. Our collection rate is usually between 92 and 94%. Most years, depending on collections and delinquencies. Page 10, things to be aware of. One thing to be aware of is foregoing revenue. I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to provide an illustration. This is a form, is our tax rate certification that we receive. You'll see the compensating column says we should receive, our expected revenue would be 17.3. The 4% increase would be 18 million. The difference is called the gap. Robin, you go to the next page. The gap between those two figures is 669,105. That would be what we'd leave on the table, picking the compensating rate versus the 4% rate. In 20 years, that 669,000 is $13.3 million. It's just a cumulative effect. The next page, catch up here, page 13. These are the years that we levied the compensating rate. You can see the foregone revenue for each of those years, 2.2 million. Over 20 years, again, that looks like $44 million. I mean, we can all imagine what we could do with that type of money for our students. What we do this year sets the bar for the following year. This year's adopted rate will be reflected in next year's calculation. We can't have multiple years where our tax revenues remain flat. This is not good for our overall financial position. The compensating rate would provide us with the same amount of revenue as last year, yet our expenses continue to increase. We are literally losing ground without new revenue. We still have mandates such as full-day kindergarten that's only funded half a day, Infinite Campus, Munis software mandates. We're seeing increases in devices, general supplies, and software. We have rank and step increases each year. The Hanover implementation increased our classified salary expenses. We have transportation costs that are funded at 55% through SEEK. Our instruction, our plant operations, and our food service have increased an average of 3% each year since 2016. Those are significant reasons to raise taxes. On page 17, you'll see the taxpayer impact of a 4% increase. Down at the bottom, $120,000 total valuation would create a 2.3% increase, or $16.80 per year. Districts that have run into financial trouble are usually districts that have avoided raising taxes. We don't want to be one of those districts. We don't know what's around the corner with this COVID and education funding cuts due to tax revenue shortfalls. Our budget can quickly turn around, and what we need to do is we need to be prepared, and we need to continue to pursue excellence in Henderson County. So I'll leave it up to you to make the decision on where we need to go.
Thank you, Ms. Cindy. Do we have any comments, Mr. West? No? Mr. Kirk?
I appreciate Cindy, a very thorough explanation. Appreciate Morgana taking time to explain things so that before I got here tonight.
Right. Right, and for the
And I
general,
appreciate the public who spoke.
and for the general public's knowledge, each of the board members had the opportunity to come and meet personally with Miss Morgana Stanley, and Ms. Cindy Cloutier to go over all of the information that was included in our packet, very detailed, and ask any questions this evening. So if you hear us asking no questions this evening, it's because every one of us had the opportunity to sit down with her and go through all these details. So it doesn't look like that we don't ask any questions. We've asked them all in advance and gone through this with a fine-tooth comb before we got here this evening. So, Mr. Mike, comments?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Urshik, Mr. Pruitt, Mr. Green for coming out and speaking your piece, and I appreciate that. I know we are in tough times, and it takes a little bit of courage to come out here and speak your piece with regards to these taxes, but I'm here to deal with these kids, make sure these kids have the best education possible. And we're going to see to it that we can educate those kids and keep the best folks working here in the Henderson County School District. These kids are our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Ms. Tracy? No? Ms. Morgana, do you have any comments to add to Ms. Cindy Cloutier's presentation?
Just a few comments, and I appreciate that opportunity. I'd like to thank Ms. Cloutier for preparing our presentation this evening, and we have had conversations together. We obviously feel the pandemic in the school district, as the gentlemen have spoke tonight as well. And we have certainly seen an increase in expenditures, whether it's technology or infrastructure or how we're educating our children. And as the superintendent of the Henderson County Schools, it is, whether it's a hard thing to say or not say tonight, it is my responsibility and duty to oversee 75-ish hundred children and make sure that we have the means and that we're financially stable to educate them in a 21st century atmosphere. That is the vision of the Henderson County Schools. And with some of the increased expenditures we have had with COVID, obviously because our kids are being educated a little differently, with some of the changes that we've had in payroll, because our employees, our hourly employees, have definitely deserved the work that you all have approved in the past. I would tonight ask the board, and I concur with Ms. Cloutier, for you all to consider the 4% revenue. And I want to just kind of make that little disclaimer. We always talk about that every year. When you all vote in a little bit, you're not voting for a 4% increase in the tax rate.
Correct.
You would vote for a 4% increase in the revenue that the school district would receive. So for us this year, that's a 2.3% change in a tax bill. So we often go, it's 4%, but we certainly want the general public to know it's a 4% revenue increase, and then they look at the property value and back that up. And this year, it happens to be a 2.3% increase. So I'd like to kind of clarify that. It would be about $16.80 for every person who has assets of $120,000. That's kind of the equating it, and I think $1.50-ish a month on 120 is, our kids are worth that. So I would request the board's consideration of voting in favor of 4% revenue for the Henderson County children.
Thank you. I have to agree, and the fact that a lot of this is unknown. We've got expenses that have gone up already this year. We have no idea what our expenses are going to be if we have to keep going back and forth between NTI, hybrid model, full open school. If this goes on until next spring when school is over, we have no idea what our expenses are going to be. I've been on this board long enough, and so has Mike. Mike's got me passed on that level, to remember a time that our finances did get down to a very low level, and we had to lay off quite a few people because we didn't have the funds to be able to do that. That put our children at a disadvantage, not having all the teachers, not having all the service personnel that they need. And I believe this year our children are going to need every person that we have, every cafeteria person, every person that drives the bus, every person that cleans the bleachers, that teaches the kids, and that helps with the mental health. We're going to need every person we can get. I don't believe we can afford to have cuts. And we've seen that if we take a compensating rate years and years, it does have a detriment. So that's my belief on it. But I do appreciate the three gentlemen that come to speak tonight. I appreciate their passion for their side of the community, and that's my passion for this side of the community. So we do have an action that has to be required. Ms. Beth, is there anything we need to read specifically to do it, or just ask what rates would like to be introduced? There's nothing specific that has to be stated, is that correct? Just making sure we get the KRS right. Yes, ma'am, okay. I'm sorry. Sure, you can have about 2 minutes. Oh, you need to have a microphone, Mr. Pruitt, I'm sorry.
Just real quick, me being born and raised here in Henderson County, I understand how great the people back our educational system, even like Board Member Waller said, we want to give our kids the best education. And my daughter came up through this system, and she's done great. And she's represented at this school, Henderson County. Look where a little girl from Gage Street, Henderson County, go to South Heights and end up University of Georgia and all of that. We've done a great job. But what I'm really trying to get across to y'all, we have to throw that other political talk out. There's so many people, Mike, that are hurting right now and are going to be hurting in the next couple of years. And I looked at the numbers. She said $600,000 difference from taking the compensating rate to the 4%. If you guys could just cut that in half and take the 2% and leave the $300,000 on the table this year, and if we can make it and go next year, take the 4% and maybe take the 4% after. But right now, I'm looking at you guys and I'm saying, if I'm on that city council and I'm not thinking about some kind of stimulus for the people of Henderson, landlords, businesses, property owners, and we don't look at that as a stimulus, you guys can give a $300,000 stimulus to the people of Henderson County that have been, listen, I tell anybody, I've been in a lot of places. Henderson County has one of the greatest educational facilities and system probably in the whole United States. It's clean. We don't have to worry about gangs. Our kids can go to school freely. We got a great system here. But for $300,000, it was just the message that it was sending that we're gonna invest 2%, $300,000 back into the people that's given so much to the greatest system probably in the United States. We're building a brand new school, even though I don't like the location. Our kids are gonna get a great school. Look at our schools, they're clean. Look at the job of Margana and all the people and Robert being on the board all this time. You guys, I'll give you your props. But for $600,000, and you take 2% off that, just half, and give a $300,000 compensation stimulus to the people of Henderson. So the next time when you raise 4%, they're gonna say, when we were in this pandemic, the school system had compassion and they had a heart for the people who are financing this whole system. I'm just saying, I think it'd be a great opportunity for you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. So at this point, I will look for a motion to establish whatever rate the board feels, board members feel will have a motion. If we have a second, we can go from there, or we can have further discussion. Mr. West, you got a comment? You want to make a motion?
I'm just going to make a motion. We accept the recommendation of Ms. Cloutier, go with the 4%.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. By a show of hands, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You're opposed? Ms. Tracy, do you have a vote either direction? Because I don't want to leave you out.
I know, I appreciate that, and this is really tough.
We understand.
I mean, and I know everybody knows it's tough. I wanted to kind of lead off on what Mr. Pruitt just said about the best school system in the state of Kentucky is right here. And I know that it takes money and lots of money to run this school system. I also understand that we are in times that in my lifetime have never happened. I don't think anybody has ever had to deal with this pandemic. So I'm really struggling because I know that we need this. We didn't do it last year. We took the compensating rate, and we talked about it last year that, we took the compensating rate, not having any idea, obviously, that this was coming forward. And if we continue to do this, are we going to get back in a position that we were in when I first came on the school board, when we were in a situation that was dire? I mean, to say the least, it was dreadful. We had to lay off people. We had to stop programs. It was a bad time. And so I think about that, and I think, I don't want that to happen again, because we've got kids that are expecting us to do the best thing that we can do for them. And that's our job as educators, board members, everything. That's our job to do that. A couple of things as I was listening again and have read all this today. I liked what Morgana said about it's not 4%. And when I think about 2.3% and on $120,000 value, property value, $16, good Lord, I went to Starbucks, which I never do, and spent $5.50 on a drink a while ago. And I thought, how awful was that? Nothing against Starbucks. But, I think people dish out lots and lots of money, so I think about $16.50 whatever cents it was to do this and the impact that it's going to have in the life of our school system. So, like I said, I never make decisions quickly. I've thought about this and beat myself up about it, and I just, with everything that I have, I want to vote no. I do want to vote no. But at the same time, I have all these employees and people that work in our school system that we want to keep having a job because there's so many people out there that don't have jobs. So we are paying people to work. That's what they're doing. That's their job. So we are keeping approximately how many people employed, Ms. Stanley? Like roughly 1,125 people in Henderson County and surrounding counties, wherever they come from, are working because we have a job for them. And if we don't have the money to pay their salary, they don't have a job. So I don't, and one of the things that we've increased that's costing money, and I know kids are going to need it, faculty and staff are going to need it, is our mental health workers. This has had huge effects on kids that we don't even know how it's affecting them. I mean, and we need people in our school system to help those kids. So I am not taking this lightly. I didn't vote to raise taxes last year. I didn't vote the year before to raise taxes. But at some point, as I tell my own kids, somebody has to pay for this school system to continue. And to continue not just mediocre. We want to be the best that we can be. And that's what we always do. And we have a staff in Henderson County that makes sure that our kids get the very best. I have 3 adult children. They all work. They were educated in Henderson County public school system. And it has to be paid for by somebody. 2 of our daughters are nurses. So they're right up in the middle of all this, literally up in the middle of it. And it is real. And for people that think it's not, go shadow a nurse one day and see. So, with that, I have to vote to increase the taxes. The 2.3%, which is 4%, however that goes, but it equals out to 2.3%. So, my vote is yes.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. And I will second your comments with an amen, especially the part about shadowing a nurse. So by my count, we have 4 yeas and 1 nay, and that action then is passed. The next item on the agenda is to adjourn this lovely meeting, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Kirk. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank everyone. Thank you all.